So while that's drying, let's go down and add a little bit more color to her shoes. And so for that, I've used walnut stain. So I'll grab a little bit on the end of my brush. And I want the inside of her little shoe right here to stay this color, so I'm not going to add any more color on that part, but I'm still going to add a little bit more here on the side. So I grab me some walnut stain and bring it up here on her shoe. And as I get to this side, I'm going to wipe my brush off so that this side of her shoe doesn't get quite as much ink as I laid down on this first side. Okay, and then you let that dry, and you can go back and you can decide if it's dark enough or if you want to add some more layers. So let's do the same thing for this side of her shoe. And again, I want this middle part of her shoe to stay lighter, so I'm not going to put my ink in there. I'm going to go around it. Add some more color on this side. Okay, so our bow is dried up here, and so for our bow, I added a little bit of walnut stain in the creases to make it a little bit darker. So I've grabbed a little bit of walnut stain on the end of my brush, and I want it to be dark, like right up here where it comes out of the bow. Maybe a little bit, but remember it's dark, so just a little bit, and then get water and just wipe that down just a little bit along the sides. Maybe same up here where the bow comes out of the knot. Put a little dab on there, wipe your brush off, and then use your water to pull it out just a tad. It just gives a darker effect right here in the crack where it's coming out. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing down here where her bow is touching her dress. I want it to be a little bit shadowed on this side, so I'm going to dab a little bit on that side of her bow. And then just use water to kind of soften the line. Not really pull it out, but just kind of soften it just a little bit. Okay, I think I'll put a little bit on this side of her ribbon that's hanging down too, just a little bit. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so for the ground, I'm going to use pumice stone. Okay, so I just got I'm going to give my brush a little squeeze and make sure it's wet. I'm going to grab a little bit of pumice stone, and I'm going to give her something to stand on. So I want her ground to be not just level with the bottom of her shoes, but kind of go up a little bit. So I'm just going to go, let's say, right about here, and make me an imaginary line. And then I'm just going to bring my ink down along the bottom of her shoe. And you may have to get more ink. This was just my test line there. Soften it a little bit. Okay, and you maybe, let's put a little bit maybe underneath of her shoe. Make it look like she's standing on the ground. And her shoe's casting a shadow. And you can go as dark as you want to. Okay, and then you let that dry and you come back if you want it to be darker and add a little bit more shadows. But while that's drying, I'm going to go up here and I want to give her a shadow around her body. And for that, I used weathered wood. And so for to make I diluted it this time. So to make my diluted thing, I'm going to take my water brush and I'm going to squeeze it until it drips on the paper. So I've got a little bitty bubble right here. It's kind of hard to see it, but you'll be able to see it when I put the stuff in there. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of weathered wood onto my brush. So I've got a little bit there, and I'm just going to mix it in. Okay, so now you can see my little bubble just a little bit, but I don't think that's going to be dark enough. So I'm going to grab me a little bit more of my weathered wood on my brush and mix it in again. Okay, and that looks a little bit better. At least we can see it. It's kind of a stormy cloud colored day. That's what it reminds me of. So I'm going to use that to go around the outside of my girl. So I've wiped my brush off. It's pretty wet because I dripped water from it. So I'm going to really dab it. Okay, and after I've got it to my brush dried where I want it to again, I'm going to grab a little bit of my weathered wood diluted ink here, and I'm just going to go right next to her body. Okay, and I can see already that that's still not dark enough because I can't hardly even see it. So I'm going to grab a little bit more of my weathered wood and I'm going to mix it into my drop. So now it's looking a little bit more grayish blue. Okay, so I'm going to grab my girl again, and we'll try it again. So I'm going to grab me a little bit of my diluted paint, and then I'm just going to start right next to it. Oh, see, that looks much better. I can see it now. Okay. So I'm just going to use that to go around. And as my brush starts to run out, I'm just going to take my water and flick it away from her body, the ink color, so it fans out and it becomes the color of the paper. It'll dilute it right down to where you can't see the edge of your line. Okay, same thing for up here. Go around her ponytail with your brush and then just use the water to flick it away from her. And it's not too much color, but it's just enough that you'll be able to see a little bit of a shadow around her when you get all done. And you'll really be able to see it a little bit better when it's dry too. I missed a little spot right there. And then let's do the other side. So I'm going to grab me a little bit of my paint. And again, run it down the side here. And then just use my water. I'm trying not to touch her so much and pull some of the ink away from her clothes, because you can do that. You can grab the color that's already laid down and it'll run out in here into your background. So I try not to touch her quite a bit. It happens, but if you try to avoid it, you'll avoid frustration later. Yeah, so lay down as you run out, lay down some more. And I do it in patches. You don't want to do it all, go clear around her whole body all at once, because it would dry and then the line does not pull away quite as nicely as if it's all wet. You got this big puddle of water and you're pulling it. It's much easier to pull than it is if you let the line dry and come back later and try to smooth it out. Don't forget to get in between her legs. Okay, so after you've got your whole girl shadowed around the outside, you would decide if you needed it to be darker. Let's say you wanted this side of her body to be casting a shadow more than this side because the sun was shining on this side. So for that, I'm going to grab a little bit more of my weathered wood on my brush, and I'm going to add more paint to my dot that I diluted so that it's even darker, just a little bit, than what I started with. And then I just grab a little bit more, just start again on my brush, and then go down here and start at the bottom and just add maybe a little bit more shadow to this side of her body. I've got my diluted paint here, and we're just going to flick it away and make this side a little bit darker. And maybe a little bit darker here in between her leg. But it just gives her, so she's a little bit darker on this side, so it looks more like the sun is shining over here more, and this side is kind of casting a shadow backwards. And you let it dry, and you just add as much as you want wherever you want it to be darkest. And then for the ground down here, I think I'll go in and add a little bit more of my pumice stone. So I'm going to grab a little bit of more pumice stone. I'm going to give it a little bit more shading maybe on this side, because again, I'm wanting her to cast a shadow more this way. So I'm just going to give it just a little bit more. Maybe in between her shoe. Underneath this shoe, looks like it maybe needs a little bit more. So it looks like she's standing on something. But just like that. So there's our girl all finished painting with our Distress inks. So we're finished with that. But this time, for something fun, because we received in a previous kit, if you were buying the kits as we go, you received a Zig Wink of Stella glitter pen, a yellow one. So for that, I pulled it out. You don't have to, but I pulled it out just so I could add some yellow glitter to her little yellow bow ties. So I've got my Wink of Stella glitter pen, and I got my little craft sheet. Whoops. I got my little craft sheet, and I'm going to take my yellow pen, and I'm just going to, and you can use your nonstick craft mat too, or your acrylic block, and just color a little bit of color on there. So see, I've grabbed a little bit of color. And I'm just going to take my pen and pick up a little bit of this glitter, and I'm just going to add it to her dress, to the yellow areas. And you can add as much or as little as you want. I just wanted to give it a little bit of sparkle. Without adding any more, hardly any more color. But it just gives it a little bit of shimmeries on there. And you could go back, or if you even wanted to do, you wanted it to be even more concentrated, you could take it and put it directly onto the dress and then paint. So I've also pulled a clear glitter pen from my pile, and I'm going to add a little bit of clear to her dress. So again, I'm just going to color right onto my craft sheet. And I know you can't see it because it's clear, but you're going to grab a little bit of your color onto your craft sheet, and then I'm just going to use that clear to wipe down on her dress. Just add a few sparkles. Maybe see, but you can color directly on the girl, so I'm going to add a little bit of sparkles maybe up here at the top. And you want to be quick. So you've colored it on there, and then you just want to wipe it down so it spreads your sparkles to the bottom of her dress. But if you wait too long, it will dry and you're not going to move it anywhere. So that's for the clear one. Looks pretty, adds just a little bit of sparkles on there. Okay. Now, I didn't use it on this particular girl, but if you wanted to add some shadows onto her dress, let's say she's on here, and even though we use the black soot and the cracks of her dress here, I have these new great distress markers. So I really love, they come with a fine tip and a brush tip. And I haven't really used the brush tip very much yet, but this fine tip, I love that for adding shadows to things. So again, I will keep my water brush really close, but I want to add, maybe darken up the edges of her sleeves where it touches the dress. So I'm just going to take my bundled sage brush and brush it right into the crack of her dress right there, and then take my water brush and just tap it a little bit to soften the edge of the line. Same thing for, let's say we want to add a little bit of shadow right next to where her hair bow or her bow touches her dress. So I go in with my brush and add the shadow, and then go back with my water brush and just tap the line just a little bit, so it softens the edge a little bit. But the detail brush, the detail fine tip point of this pen works awesome for getting into those little bitty areas that you can't get into normally with the end of your water brush. I love it for that. So you could use it for that, or even up here, even though I didn't do it on her hair this time, maybe next time I'll do it. You could add some lines of color. Just take your pen and just draw some cute little hair lines like we do with our markers. That works out pretty good. But if you want to give these a try, I'll try to work with them some more until I feel more comfortable with them, and maybe do a whole coloring page with her colored just with the distress markers. I just haven't used them enough yet to color the whole image in. So that's the girl this month, Party Lucy. She looks really cute. And here's our finished card. So if you want to color along with me this month, head over to Heather's Hobby Haven and pick up a kit, and you can color this card too. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.